I never imagined that a simple job could make my heart behave like a live wire. I mean, watching someone is supposed to be mechanical, boring, even like counting clouds on a rainy day. Yet here I was, leaning against the cold edge of his kitchen counter, notebook in hand, pretending to observe his every move while secretly feeling my pulse thundering like a drumline. When he walked in, all casual smiles and the kind of effortless charm that made people forget their own names, I thought, great, another client with a dangerous amount of charisma. His name was Ethan, and for some reason, the universe had decided that he needed me to be everywhere he went, invisibly tethered like a shadow. "You're really going to be here all day?" he asked without turning around, his voice casual, but there was a strange weight to it, the kind of tone that makes you wonder if you're about to be punched in the gut or kissed. I nodded, my throat dry. "Yep, just following instructions." He laughed, a soft, melodic sound that made me want to apologize for existing just to hear it again. But the absurdity of my assignment struck me. Here I was, supposedly guarding him, yet every instinct screamed that I was the one being watched. The way his eyes lingered too long when I thought he wasn't looking, the subtle tilt of his head as if he could read my every thought. Ethan had this uncanny ability to see right through the armor I wore so carefully. By the third hour, I was hopelessly tangled in thoughts I shouldn't have been thinking. Thoughts about the curve of his jaw, the warmth of his laughter, the way his hands moved when he spoke. It was maddening. I told myself it was professional interest, research even, but lying to myself had never been one of my stronger skills. Then came the moment that shattered all pretense. He was leaning against the doorway, watching me scribble something pointless in my notebook, and suddenly, without warning, he stepped closer. My chest tightened instinctively. "Are you happy?" he asked, out of nowhere, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. I froze. For a moment, all the careful walls I had built crumbled. Happy? Me? I wasn't even sure what that word meant anymore. Happiness seemed like a foreign language spoken by people who didn't have to breathe around constant tension and suspicion. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely audible. He tilted his head, studying me as though he were trying to memorize the lines on my face. "You don't have to hide it. I can see when someone's pretending." The honesty in his words hit me harder than any slap could have. Suddenly, the distance between us, the professional barrier, the invisible line I had drawn, felt ridiculously thin. And when his hand brushed mine as he reached for a mug of coffee, something inside me snapped. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly absurd all at once. Over the next few days, the lines blurred further. I wasn't just observing him anymore. I was learning him, discovering the nuances of his moods, the quiet moments when he thought no one was watching, the subtle signs of his own hidden fears. And he, somehow, seemed to see right into the corners of my mind I kept locked up, smiling knowingly at the thoughts I hadn't dared share with anyone. One night, we found ourselves sitting on the worn sofa in his living room. A storm raging outside that mirrored the chaos inside my head. Rain splattered against the windows, lightning illuminating the shadows of the room. I wanted to run, to vanish into the safety of anonymity, but Ethan's gaze held me hostage. "Why do you look like you've seen a ghost every time I talk to you?" he asked softly, his hand brushing against mine once more, lingering just long enough to make my stomach flip. "Because maybe I'm scared," I admitted, voice trembling despite myself. "Scared of what?" His eyes searched mine with a patience that was both maddening and comforting. "Of this," I whispered, motioning vaguely between us. "Of feeling something I shouldn't." He smiled, the kind of small, knowing smile that made the room feel warmer than any heater could. "Maybe feeling it isn't a bad thing." It was the first time I allowed myself to imagine a life beyond my rules, beyond the rigid structure I had clung to for years. And the dangerous thing was, I wanted that life with him, wanted it more than I wanted to breathe. The days blurred into nights, and the pretense of just a job became impossible to maintain. We were entangled in a quiet gravity, one that pulled us closer with every shared glance, every accidental touch. I found myself craving his presence more than anything, and the thought terrified me because I knew how fragile this could be. One evening, the tension finally broke. Ethan had invited me to stay after work, and we ended up sitting on the sofa, the rain drumming softly against the windows. He reached for my hand again, and this time I didn't pull away. Our fingers intertwined like puzzle pieces, and in that small gesture, everything unsaid between us found its first breath. "I feel like I've been waiting to meet you forever," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. I laughed nervously, heart pounding. "You make it sound like fate or something." "Maybe it is," he replied, leaning closer, his eyes searching mine. "Maybe I was just waiting for you to stop hiding." The world outside seemed to disappear. The storm, the city, even the rules I had lived by, none of it mattered anymore. There was only the warmth of his gaze, the gentle weight of his hand in mine, and the promise of something I had been too afraid to name. We kissed that night, softly at first, tentative as if testing the waters of a new reality. But the hesitation melted away quickly, replaced by a hunger that had been simmering under the surface for weeks. It wasn't just passion, it was relief, recognition, the confirmation that we were exactly where we were meant to be. From that moment, everything changed. The apartment became our sanctuary, a world where our laughter and whispered conversations filled every corner. We shared late-night dinners, lazy Sunday mornings, and the simple intimacy of routine. Even the smallest gestures, him resting his head on my shoulder, me brushing a strand of hair from his face, felt monumental. I realized how much I had needed this connection, how much I had yearned for someone who could see me without judgment, without pretense. And Ethan was that person, the one who had broken through my walls without violence, without force, just with patience and a quiet insistence that I was worth caring about. But life wasn't without its moments of doubt. I still questioned myself, still wrestled with insecurities that surfaced in the quiet of the night. Would this last? Could we really be happy outside the bubble we had created? Every fear was met with his steady reassurance, his unwavering presence. "I'm not going anywhere," he would say, and I believed him because he had already proven it in countless small ways. We began to dream together, not just about weekends or vacations, but about a future where we could exist openly, freely, without fear. We talked about moving into a place that was ours entirely, decorating it together, building traditions that were just ours. And in those conversations, I felt hope blossom in a way I hadn't thought possible. One evening, as the sun set and painted the room in warm golden hues, Ethan pulled me close. "Do you remember the first time I asked if you were happy?" he murmured. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. "How could I forget?" "You didn't answer then," he said, brushing a thumb across my cheek. "But now I think you do." I swallowed hard, emotions twisting and unspooling inside me. I am happy," I whispered, leaning into him, feeling the truth of it settle like a weight lifted from my chest. He smiled, that same gentle, knowing smile, and kissed me softly. "Good, because I am too." From that moment on, the rest of the world could wait. There would always be challenges, always doubts and fears, but for the first time, I knew we could face them together. We had found a connection that was rare, fragile, and beautiful, and we were going to nurture it no matter what. Ethan and I learned that love doesn't always arrive with fireworks or dramatic declarations. Sometimes, it comes quietly, in the small gestures, the shared silences, the simple presence of someone who sees you completely and chooses to stay. And that, I realized, was more than enough. We spent that night talking, laughing, and holding each other, the storm outside fading into a gentle drizzle. I had been hired to watch him, to protect him from the world, but in the end, it was he who had saved me from loneliness, from fear, from myself. And as we sat together, wrapped in the quiet intimacy of a life we were beginning to share, I finally understood the answer to his question. Happiness wasn't a distant concept or an impossible dream, it was right here, in his arms, in his eyes, in the gentle certainty that no matter what, we were together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely, undeniably, and joyously free. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.